So, today we're in Matthew chapter 4, verse 18 to 24, and the title of today's study is Joining Jesus Kru. Joining Jesus Kru. Now, everyone wants to be part of a team, right? In school you want to be part of the football team, or you want to be with the popular people, and then in work you might want to be with the influential people or the rich people, or you want to be with the people who got the summer house in the country or by the beach and got a yacht and all them kind of things. And then you get a lot of people these days who want to be in gangs. They want to be in crews. Tupac Shakur badly wanted to be in a gang. He couldn't get in a gang. You know, he tried so hard, and that's why he acted like such a bad man, because he wanted to get into a crew so badly. And you know what? He got his wish. He was a gangster, and he was shot as a gangster, and now he's dead. And I don't think he's resting in peace either, unless something happened just before he passed away. There's this desire to be in a gang, and Jesus is the best man who ever lived. He's the most influential man who ever lived. And he's the hardest man who ever lived, because no one else endured all that pain for such a multitude of people, for their benefit. So I think that if there was anyone's crew you want to be part of, it's Jesus' crew. And so today we're going to look at who can join Jesus' crew, and what joining his crew entails, and what are the benefits of joining Jesus' crew. And if you haven't joined Jesus' crew, then hopefully you'll see that it's a good thing to do. And if you have, then you can check out today if you're really living up to the expectations of being in Jesus' crew. So, first thing I want to point out before we properly look at the text, those guys in the story have already seen Jesus. If you look in the first few chapters of the Gospel of John, they've already been around with Jesus, seen him do his thing, right? They've already seen Jesus, but now Jesus calls them to be his disciples, right? Now, the thing is, there's going to be a lot of you in here today who already know Jesus. You've already seen Jesus, you've seen him do his thing, but this message is still relevant. So this ain't like, this is just a message for them people that don't know the Lord. This is a message for all of us, because there's a time where God's saying to us, look, I want you to be even more serious in your commitment to me. So, first thing we're going to look at is what kind of people can be in Jesus' crew. Right? What kind of people does Jesus pick to be in his crew, to be in his family? And based on Matthew 4, what I'm going to say is trapped people. Now, if you was at the Bible study a few weeks ago, you got an advantage because you know what I'm saying. Because what I'm talking about is the fact that Jesus chose Galilee as his stomping ground at this time, right? So the first verse, in verse 18, it says, "Now as Jesus was walking by the Sea of Galilee," right? So Jesus straight away starts walking around the Sea of Galilee. And remember, Jesus is from Nazareth. And a few weeks ago we looked at how Nazareth was ghetto, right? Nazareth back then, in those times, would be like someone saying they come from a rough council estate. Be like someone saying, I come from Winstanley or wherever. Yeah, it's not really the kind of place you'd expect a posh person to be. And yet Jesus, King of the universe, chooses Galilee. He chooses Nazareth to be raised, right? So he's going around Galilee, and Galilee's a rough area, right? I don't know if you know, but it was invaded by the Syrians. It was also invaded by the Assyrians. So that's easy to remember. The Syrians and the Assyrians. And then it was invaded by the Romans. So these people are used to being invaded and treated badly. Now what happened, as a result of being invaded, there was a mixture of Jews and non-Jews in this area, right? So you've got Jews and Gentiles. That's the word for non-Jews. What happened was then you got a mixed race living in Galilee. People who were half Jew and people who were half Gentile. Now, if you remember, only a few years ago, it was common for people in London to say half-caste all the time. People would say it. Some people didn't mean it in a derogatory way, but a lot of people meant it in a derogatory way. Back then, this was how the Jews who lived down south viewed the Galileans who lived up north. It would be like them, them half-caste guys. That would be the way they'd view him, right? They would see them as inferior, and yet these are the guys Jesus came to. Okay, completely different picture to how people think the church is. In reality, Jesus goes to the mixed race people. Jesus goes to the people that society would look down upon, the people that wouldn't be royalty, wouldn't have royal blood, the people who aren't posh. Jesus chooses those people to bring into his crew. Now, a few weeks ago, what we looked at was Isaiah 9, verse 1. And Isaiah 9 is the quotation that's used earlier in Matthew 4. If you've got your Bible, you'll see it, about there being a light to those living in the land of darkness. Now, read out Isaiah 9, verse 1. It says, "But there will be no more gloom for her who is in anguish." Remember that word, anguish. "In earlier times he treated the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali with contempt. But later on he shall make it glorious by the way of the sea on the other side of Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. Those who live in a dark land, the light will shine on them." Right? These are for the people that are called, half caste. The people that are not seen as proper Jews, and they're treated with contempt. And God says in Isaiah that no longer will they be treated with contempt, but they will be made glorious. Now that word anguish, right, it's the Hebrew word musak. And a few weeks ago we looked at how that word anguish, the word musak, means constraint or restriction or frozen, like when water is frozen, like when your bank has frozen your account and you can't get any money out, or BT have locked off your phone, you can't make any calls anymore, you're frozen. This is how it is growing up in London. Many times we're frozen when the window's broken and the council won't come and fix it, and you're waiting months, even years, for the council to come and fix it, and you're 5 years old and you can't fix the window, and your mum can't fix the window, and you just got a broken window that lets all the cold air come in all the time. Frozen. That's how it is. But those are the people God wants in his crew. Now, there's a Greek scholar called Zodhiates, and he says that this word anguish indicates something that hems a person in an emotional or a physical way. Something that hems someone in an emotional or physical way, and something that creates a compulsion or a forced behavior. So like you hear many people these days say, you know what, I have to shop weed because there's no other way to make money, I can't get a job. That is a compulsion, that's a forced behavior. Or so they think. That's people saying, the system's against me, so now I have to do this. Now, I'm not saying that's right, but what I'm saying is the answer is Jesus, because Jesus has come for those people. People in that situation, they're a Galilean, and Jesus has come for the Galileans to bring them into his crew. Now, people often think they're not good enough to be in Jesus' crew, but Jesus has specifically chose these Galileans, these people treated with contempt, to be in his crew. People who felt forced to act a certain way, and yet Jesus still brought them into his family. Now, I heard someone say just 2 days ago, I was hoping they was going to come today, they were saying that they want to be a Christian, but they don't think they could commit to it because they would keep doing wrong. They thought they couldn't be a Christian. Now, that is how Galileans would think. They'd think, well, this is us, we're half-breeds. What can we do? We're not Jews, we're not Gentiles, we're a mixture of the two. We got a funny accent. You know, the Galileans had a different accent. They were looked down upon. Just like someone with a Cockney accent is looked down upon by someone who speaks the Queen's speech. And this guy thought he couldn't come to Jesus. But that's not the way Jesus' crew works. He calls people when they're in that place, and then he changes them. So if you feel trapped, you don't have to run away from Jesus. You don't have to wait till you're better to come to Jesus. All you got to do is choose Jesus, and he will fix you up. Now, what do I mean when I say choose Jesus? What I mean is come after Jesus. Right? If we look at verse 18 in Matthew 4, it says, "Now as Jesus was walking by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who was called Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Now when he says follow me, he's literally saying come after me. Duete opizo mu. That's the Greek words for come after me. That's literally what he's saying. Come after me. Now I say this not just to throw a bit of Greek in, but because I think it's easy to say you follow Jesus. But it's harder to say we're coming after Jesus. So I just point out, literally he's saying, come after me. And you see that in another gospel account. It actually says, come after me. Now, is an illustration, right? I play this game with Jada, my 2-year-old daughter, right? I say, I'm going to get you, right? And then I slowly start going towards her. And she goes, ah! And she starts smiling and going all nuts. And then I start tickling her and she starts laughing until she's about to puke. And then I stop. And then leave it a few seconds, and then I say, I'm coming after you. And then she does it again. And sometimes she puts a blanket over her head to hide. She thinks it's harder for me to find her then. You see, she thinks I can't see her. But then I seek her out, and she knows Daddy's seeking her out. And then I get the blanket, and I go, where's Jada? And then I pull it off, and I go, there's Jada. And then she goes, ah! And goes all crazy again. Starts hiccuping. Then I give her a few minutes again, and then do the same game again. Now, this is a way that me and Jada bond. I'm showing her that I care about her enough to seek after her. Right? And this is the way Jesus wants it to be with us, that we actually come after him. Not that we just say to people, yeah, I'm a follower of Jesus. Yeah, righteousness. You know, like all these rap stars that wear the big crosses and they say, thank God. And on the album they say, thank God. And then they say, rest in peace, all the gangsters who got shot, who lived a life of wickedness and sin. Jesus doesn't want that. Jesus wants people who actually actively seek after him. Just like I seek after Jada. And even when she's hidden under the blanket, I still seek after her. Because you don't always feel God in an emotional way every day. But you still seek after him, looking for him. So, this is what being in Jesus' crew is about. It's about seeking after Jesus. Now ask yourself this question for a minute, right? If Jesus was describing you to someone else, would he say, yeah, they're coming after me? If you were describing yourself to someone else, would you say, yeah, I'm going after Jesus? Every day I'm going after him. I don't say that to condemn anyone. I just say that so you can do a little spiritual checklist of where you're at right now. This is something I've had to do for myself. Just yesterday I was like, boy, do I really seek after Jesus actively the same way that I seek after Jada when I'm playing with her? It's a challenge. But it's worth it, because Jesus will change your life when you seek after him. He can fix up your life better than Dr. Phil, Oprah, all them guys on the TV, all them books you can get. Jesus will change your life if you come to him. Now let's look at one of these results of what happens if you go to Jesus, right? As a result of following Jesus, you will save lives. You will be a life saver, okay? In verse 19, following on the story, and he said to them, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. Now this verse is clearly showing us that there's a link between following Jesus and becoming fishers of men. In other words, you can't become fishers of men without following Jesus. I just want to point this out as well. You see the asterisk where it says said. Anyone know what that means? It means present tense, right? I love this, yeah? Do you know, right, that in Koine Greek, to make a story more vivid, they would put it in the present tense. But the English translators, because they're not from council estates, they put it in the past and they say, he said to him. But the correct translation, and the way we would say it, is, and he says to them. I love it. Jesus, using the lingo. And he says to them, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. So whenever you see the asterisk, in your head, say it in the present tense. That's the way it is. Just like someone, if they were telling you a story at the bus stop, and he goes like this, and he says this. This is how the Bible does it. The Bible is relevant. Don't tell me it's not relevant. Now, getting back to what I was saying. You can only be a fisher of men if you follow Jesus. But what is a fisher of men? I think this verse sums it up quite nicely. Jude 1, verse 23. It says, save others, snatching them out of the fire. Save others, snatching them out of the fire. This is what I think being a fisher of men is. It's saving people's souls, saving people from hell. Think of it this way, right? There's a river with loads of fish in it, and the river is leading to a big sea, and the sea has had nuclear waste dumped in it. Now when those fish get in the sea, they're going to die. Now imagine there's a fisherman in his boat, and he's casting his rod out. Back in Bible times it was nets, but now it's rods. He's got his rod out and he's catching fish, putting them in a bucket of water. Then he goes down to a nice safe lake with no poison in it, and he puts the fish in it to save them. Right? If they go in that sea, they're going to be poisoned and die. But if they go in the lake, they'll be safe. And us being fishers of men is just like that. Saving people from hell, saving them from the fiery lake. That's what being in Jesus' crew is about. Now, this is important for two reasons. One, so that we realize that if we're in Jesus' crew, we've got to save people. That's our job. It's not to keep your faith to yourself and watch all your mates go to hell and say sorry if you pass their way on Judgment Day. It's not about that. It's about saving souls. But the only way you can save souls is by following Jesus. You can't do it independently. Now, if you follow Jesus, your life will be changed better than any Bible school or any seminars you could go on. Check out Acts 4 verse 13. This is what the enemies of the disciples said about them, right? Now, as they observed the confidence of Peter and John and understood that they were uneducated and untrained men, right? Uneducated and untrained, they were amazed and began to recognize them as having been with Jesus. Yeah, so if you follow Jesus, your life will be changed. And it don't matter if you ain't been to Bible school. It don't matter if you haven't been on the latest how to get successful seminars. It don't matter if you ain't been to business school. You know, it don't matter if you don't wear a posh suit. If you follow Jesus, people will hang around with you and say, rah, you've been with Jesus. And that's the best thing. You know, when I was a youth, my main goal was to be a bad man. It's sad, but it's true. And my role model was someone who wasn't too good. And I wanted to be like him, be getting in fights all the time, busting heads all the time. That was what I looked up to. And you know what I found? That people didn't really like me. I thought they did, but it's just because when they chat to you, they're kind of scared of you. But people didn't really respect me. And then later, I remember meeting this guy, a friend of mine, a guy called, well, I won't say his name, because tapes, you know, makes the world a small place. But I was like, you know, everyone seems to like this guy, but he's not hard. He doesn't beat people up and all that. And I was like, what's going on here? And I suddenly realized people don't respect you for acting like the devil. Not really. But if you follow Jesus and walk closely with him, people will respect you. Too many boys these days are trying to impress girls by getting drunk, getting blunted, getting off their face, think the girl's going to be impressed. They're not impressed at all. But get close to Jesus and people will be impressed. Not that that's the reason why we do it, but being close to Jesus will change your life. Definitely change your life. It's changed my life. Now, ask yourself, would you like to stop your friends and family going to hell? Because if you would, the first step is to follow Jesus. I used to think the first step was start telling them about Jesus. Maybe even preach at them rather than preach to them, as people say, and get in arguments with them. But the first step is to follow Jesus. You know, it says in the Bible about women who are married to non-Christian husbands. And it says about living your life in such a way that the men see the difference in your life. And that's the same for everyone. If you want people to see Jesus is real, you get close to Jesus and they see that he's real. So turn off the TV, turn off the stereo, turn off the iPod, spend time with Jesus, sitting on the couch, sitting on your bed, spend half an hour with Jesus, spending time with him, coaching with Jesus. Now, I say this because if you want to be in Jesus' crew, there's going to be things battling for your attention. TV, music, girls, boys, drugs, drink, partying, raving. Raving seemed so important to me when I was 17 years old. You would not believe how important it seemed to me. And now me and Shay will be driving back from gospel night on a Friday night and we see all the students from the local college going out partying, wearing really cold clothes. And I'm just like, what are they doing? I don't understand it. But then I'm like, boy, I used to think like that. I used to think it was all about raving. And now I'm like, what? It's nuts. So things are going to get in the way of following Jesus, but don't let things get in the way of following Jesus, right? Don't let things get in the way of following Jesus. Matthew 4 verse 20, following on the story. This is what the disciples did. Immediately they left their nets and followed him. So how long did they wait to follow him? Immediately. Yeah, immediately. So they didn't let anything get in the way of following Jesus. Now they could have said, hang on a minute. We got all these fish that are going to be in these nets in a minute. Why don't we wait, get the fish, because we don't want to waste the fish, and then we follow Jesus. They could have done that. But they didn't. They immediately followed Jesus. Now, if you wait and say, well, hang on a minute, there's something here I want to do first, chances are you're never going to go to Jesus. Because then something else will come up, and something else will come up, and something else, and you'll never get it done. Now, this is why you should follow Jesus immediately. This is why it's good that they follow Jesus immediately, right? You never know how much time you got left. A young boy died in Richmond Park a while ago. Tree branch fell on his head. No one knew that was going to happen. Poor boy died. All right? You got a boy murdered up north just for being a black teenager. Murdered by 2 white guys. No one would have seen that coming. You've got people getting killed all the time in shootings and stabbings. And you've also got people dying in car crashes all the time. You never know when your time's run out. Now, there was a guy in my school, right, who decided he was basically just smoking too much weed. It wasn't even what people have got these days. It wasn't skunk. Old-fashioned marijuana. He was smoking it for a while, and then it just got too much. He started getting really depressed, and he decided he was going to end his life. The night before, he phoned up this girl and he said, will you meet me tomorrow morning? I have to talk to you. But he planned to commit suicide that day, but he didn't tell her. He just said, I need to talk to you. Guess what? She turned up late. So he waited for her. We assume he waited for her. She never showed. He went off, he jumped in front of a train, killed himself. Now that girl was too late, but she had no idea she was going to be too late. And too many people at the moment out on the street think they can afford to be late. They think like this girl, I'm a few minutes late, but I'm just going to do my hair, you know, whatever it was. But you can't afford to be late because you never know when your time's up. A guy from my school I heard got shot in Central Park in New York. You know, a young guy. When I worked in a short time doing youth work in Philadelphia in the ghetto there, a 14-year-old boy one night got shot in the Adventure Playground. All because on the corner of the Adventure Playground there was a drug deal going on, something went wrong, someone let off a bullet, and then this 14-year-old 30 meters away gets killed, dead. No one saw that coming. You never know how much time you got, which is why you need to be immediate. So don't put off following God. No matter how much you think your fishing nets are worth. Yeah? It's hard these days because a lot of times when people turn to Jesus now, they got drugs in their pocket. Yeah? And the best thing to do is flush them down the loo, like someone in this room did once. But some people can think, you know what? Maybe I won't smoke it, but maybe I just sell it. Because, you know, a bit of money, you know, maybe even help my mum out. You know? But your nets aren't worth it. Following Jesus is worth it. That's what's worth it. Now, spend your time wisely, because if we were to say an average person lives 77 years, okay? Just allow me that. An average person lives 77 years. Now, the average person spends 40 minutes a day on the telephone. 40 minutes a day on the telephone. In a lifetime, that's 2 years of your life on the phone, yeah? 1-to-1, love you. Orange, love you. Because you're going to spend 2 years of your life devoted to them, paying them money. You're going to spend 2 years saying, here you go, here you go, here you go. Thank you, Car Phone Warehouse, here you go. Right? The average person spends an hour a day in the bathroom. I assume that includes toilet and bathroom. In a lifetime, that's 3 years of your life in the bathroom, okay? Ladies, take note. Right? 26 minutes a day getting dressed, you know, in the morning and the evening. 26 minutes. In a lifetime, that's a whole year you spent getting dressed. Okay? 3 hours of TV a day. That's what the average person spends. A lot of people watch more than 3 hours. That is 9 years of your life. If you live to 77, you've spent 9 years of your life watching Oprah, Ricky Lake, EastEnders. 9 years. Now, here's the sad thing. Your average Christian spends less than 10 minutes a day praying. Less than 10 minutes a day spending time with Jesus, the maker of the universe, the best friend you could ever have. The guy who says, come into my crew, and you join, and he paid with his blood for you to join, and then you say, Jesus, I'll give you 10 minutes. That is 7 months of your life. One day we're going to stand before Jesus. Every man is going to have to give an account for his life, for everything he said, foolish words he said, how he spent his time. So spend your time wisely. Don't give God 7 months of your life. He gave you 33 years on this planet, and he didn't have to. And he got tortured for hours, and he didn't have to. And most of us can't give him 10 minutes. So, spend your time wisely. What should you spend your time on? Spend your time on learning and serving, right? Because following Jesus means learning and serving. Check it out. Following on the story, Matthew 4 verse 20, it says, immediately they left their nets and followed him. Now, although in your English Bibles, we've just seen that the word follow is used twice. I told you before how the first time it's used, it literally means come after me, right? It's to go after Jesus. But this time, the Greek word for follow is a different word, right? This time, it's akalutheo, right? Akalutheo means to follow, okay? You think, well, yeah, so what? But a Greek scholar says that it's often used of a disciple who follows his teacher and learns and serves. So that don't just mean to follow like they walk behind Jesus. It doesn't just mean that. And we can do that. We can go to Bible studies, go to church. You know, we can do that. But are we learning from Jesus and are we serving Jesus? That's the key thing. That's what it's about, being in his crew. Now it's important to see the difference between saying you're a Christian and being a Christian and really being in Jesus' crew. Too many people these days say they're a Christian. It's amazing. I remember a time where I was trying to use garage music to reach people. And if you said you did Christian garage music, you got a blank look. What? Christian garage music? And there was no concept. These days, if I tell people I do Christian rap music, everyone's like, yeah, bless. Yeah, God is good. And everyone starts talking like they're a Christian. But are you learning from Jesus? Are you serving Jesus? It ain't about wearing a cross around your neck. There's nothing wrong with wearing a cross around your neck. But that's not what it's about. Now, a huge problem, I think, in the church today, when I say the church, I mean just Christianity in general, is a lot of people feel they've learnt it all. I went through a phase of this. In part, it was to do with the churches I went to where I wasn't really getting taught the Bible. So I just thought, you know what, I know it. I know what's in the Bible. The pastor can't tell me nothing. I know it. And even I go to read my Bible and I'd open up the Gospel of Matthew and I'd be like, do you know what, I've read this a lot of times. You know, maybe have a little look, then close up the Bible. I've read it. You know, and this attitude can seep in. But we say, yeah, I'm following Jesus. I'm not having sex outside of marriage. I'm not doing drugs. I'm not getting in fights. But we're not learning from Jesus. And all of us can learn from Jesus. I mean, God, the Bible's a big book, 66 books. You know, and it takes a lot of time to understand him. So we can all keep learning from Jesus. Let's not get complacent about that. That's why we do our Wednesday night Bible study and our Friday night Bible study and our Sunday Bible study. We used to do a Monday night Bible study, but I thought I'm not going to be able to look after my family at the same time. So, but maybe someone else will want to start a Monday night Bible study sometime. We're doing this so we learn from Jesus. But we're not just learning, we're serving. That's why people turn up today with a big urn that they carried on the buses, with an 8-year-old child as well. That's serving Jesus. You know, people helping out, setting up today, fixing funny concertina doors that I can't work out how to close. Everyone's been helping. That's serving Jesus. Yeah. Now with serving, the thing about serving is you don't always get to choose how you serve. Right? Sometimes we want to serve in the areas that we're really good at. But that would be like me and Jada. Right, if I'm like, you know what, I'm really good at running after Jada and saying, I'm going to get you, and entertaining her, but I don't really like feeding her, because when I feed her, there's food all over her face and her hair, and then there's food on the floor, and on the table, and on her clothes, and I can feed her, but then I've got to clean it all up. I don't really like doing that, so you know what, I'm going to serve Jada by just going, I'm going to get you. Now, that is not serving Jada, because what Jada needs is to be fed. She needs to be nourished, and that's how it is in the body of Christ. Sometimes we do things that we don't necessarily want to do. You know, believe it or not, I don't like setting up PA equipment. You know, being a DJ for a long period of my life, I feel like I've done that now, setting up PA equipment, but I do it, it's got to be done, it's serving. So there might be some things that you can do to serve God. You might not want to do them, but still do them. Maybe in this church, maybe outside the church. There's all ways that we can serve. That's what it's about. Learning and serving. Now, serving Jesus involves preparation. Right? Serving Jesus involves preparation. And I'm going to use the word equipping, because it's a popular buzzword, but it's a very biblical word. People don't realize it. It's from the Bible. There's all these people doing seminars using this word, thinking it's their word. It's Jesus's word. So we're going to use it, right? Check it out, okay? Matthew 4:21. So Jesus already got these two dudes following him. And now, going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James the son of Zebedee and John his brother, in the boat with Zebedee their father, mending their nets. Now, it seems to me Jesus is drawing a parallel between fishing for fish and fishing for men. Is that a fair comment? Yeah? Okay, so I hope I'm not being too allegorical here, but I think that the Bible here is trying to show us that involved in the fishing of men is a mending of nets. I think that's part of it, preparing your nets. Now, the Greek word used for mending the nets is katartidzo. Anyone who's at the Wednesday night Bible study knows this too well. I rinsed it, kept going on about it. I think it's really important. Katartidzo, it means to make equipped for a duty or a function. It's getting someone ready. Okay, they were making their nets ready. It's a biblical word. It's used in Luke 6 verse 40, if you want to look at it later. In Luke 6:40, it's used about training someone, to be trained, right? Then in Galatians 6 verse 1, it's used to restore someone who's messed up. We all mess up from time to time, and we can be restored. We don't have to run away from God, we can be restored. And in Ephesians 4 verse 12, it's the word equip, right? So mending nets, what I'm saying here is I think Jesus is trying to show us that as well as fishing for men, as well as telling people about Jesus and praying for people to get saved, we need to be trained, we need to be restored, and we need to be equipped, right? And if you want to serve well, you have to be equipped. Now, why am I saying this? Just like you can't be a fisher of men without preparing, just like you can't be let me say it again. Just like you can't be a fisherman and catch fish without preparing to fish, you can't be a fisher of men without preparing to fish men, right? We can't be fishers of men without following Jesus, and we can't be fishers of men without getting equipped, without getting prepared to do it. So it's easy for us to want to get involved in God's work, but sometimes we need to be prepared to do God's work as well. Sometimes we just want to rush in there. You know, like years ago, the reason why we're standing here today, one of the reasons, is because years ago I felt a desire to plant a church. And I was ready to do it. We're talking about 7 years ago. But I just never got the green light from God. I was ready to do it. I was like, God, I'm ready to start a church. I'm your man. Come on. Look, we need a church. I'm your guy. There wasn't like, what would you call it? A charismatic evangelical church on my council estate back then. And I was like, I'm the guy. Do it, God. But I never got the go ahead from God. And you know what I think? I think God was preparing me. I think it was like, Duncan, you're going to fall on your face. Still, I'm praying at the moment that I don't fall on my face. You know, just a few days ago, I was praying to Jesus and saying, Jesus, will you mend my nets? Will you equip me? Will you restore me? Will you prepare me? You know, because I was like, I can't do anything without your help. I can't raise a 2-year-old daughter without your help. I've only got one 2-year-old. You think that'd be easy? You know, my mum was one of 10. My grandmum was one of 20. I've got one, and I'm like, I can't do it without your help, Lord. I can't be a good husband without God's help. I can't teach Bible studies without God's help. I can't teach at South Thames College without God's help. I can't do anything without God's help. And whenever I don't spend time with God, I fall on my face. You're driving in your car and you get annoyed at someone who cuts you up and that kind of thing. You talk the wrong way to someone. All happens when you're not spending time with Jesus, when you're not getting equipped. So, make sure you're spending enough time with God so that He can equip you. And if you're hurt about things in your life, He can restore you. That's what, you know, that word, Galatians 6 verse 1, the same word is used to restore someone. God can restore people. Spend time with Jesus and he will heal you of the things that are hurting. Spend time forgiving people who've hurt you and he will heal you. I'm not saying forgiveness is a one-time, like, God, I forgive that person who completely messed up my life and I was depressed for years and years because of it. So it's like every day saying, God, I forgive that person because you forgave me. And you don't completely mean it. And the next day you say the same thing and you don't completely mean it, but you keep saying it. And eventually you get to that stage where you're like, do you know what? I've forgiven that person. And then a year later, you realize you've got to forgive them again because old thoughts are creeping back. The devil's trying to stumble you. And you're like, God, I forgive them. They were proper nasty to me, but I forgive them because you forgave me. So, being in Jesus' crew isn't just about doing a work. It's having a work done on you. Getting yourself revamped. Now, while we're on this subject of fishing, right? Think about it. These guys who were fishermen, they had to persuade themselves every morning to get out of bed and go fishing. Now, if you're a fisherman, you're probably self-employed. If you're self-employed, you don't get sick days. Okay? Now, every day they had to persuade themselves, get out of bed, go and be smelly, because fishing is smelly. I don't know if you've ever known anyone who works in one of them fishmongers. Boy. You know, if they say, let's meet up after work, you don't want to meet them at 6 o'clock. Be like, mate, meet at 9, take your time, have a shower, have a bath. You know, it would have been bad weather as well, especially the way the Sea of Galilee was. They used to get really bad storms there, right? So it's not the kind of thing where you wake up and say, I want to fish today. And that's the same way it is for us. We don't wake up every day and say, you know what? I want to tell people about Jesus. Yes. That's often not the way. We often wake up and the first thing we want to do is hit the snooze button. Right, the last thing we want to do is be spiritual. So it is hard work. I'm not saying it's easy. Fishing is hard work. But I think that's why Jesus chose these Galileans. Like I said, these mixed race people. Back then they would have called them half-caste. These people that society looked down on, the Galileans, Jesus knew they were hard. He knew they were people who would go out fishing. And that's why I think these days, you're seeing quite a few people getting saved on council estates around London. Because it's just like with the Galileans. Jesus is calling people that he knows are tough and that are going to follow him and do his work and be fishers of men. But to do it, sometimes you've got to leave people behind. Yeah, sometimes you have to leave people behind to follow Jesus. It sounds harsh, but just going by the story, yeah? Following it on, Matthew 4 verse 21. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James the son of Zebedee and John his brother, in the boat with Zebedee their fathers, mending their nets, and he called them. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed them. Yeah, and we saw it in the film. Poor dad left in the boat there with all the nets. How am I going to do this? And they leave him because they heard Jesus call them. And being called by Jesus was more important to them than anything else. I hope that is for all of us here. There was times when I was 17 years old, badly backslidden. I wanted to kill myself. And I knew I had to get back to God. But I didn't do it. And you know why I didn't do it? Because I kept thinking, I'm going to get myself good and then I'm going to come back to God. And I'd even make promises to God. I used to make promises to my girlfriend as well. Every Saturday night, I'd say, I'm not going to get in a fight tonight. I promise you. Get in a fight. They're upset, you're upset, you feel guilty. Then it's like, is there any point in trying to be good? Because I can't do it. And then one day, I actually heard God call me and he said, I'm your father and I want to be your father. And I cried. I don't know if I ever cried that much. And suddenly my life changed. I heard him call me and I was like, sorry, God. That was it. So that's all I had to do was say sorry. And I said, I'm going to do things your way from now on. Started following Jesus, going after Jesus. And that was when it changed. Now these guys, they know what their true priorities are. We live in a world where priorities are messed up. God's bottom of the pile is like an optional extra in this world. We've got so many things these days. We don't need God. We've got iPods, we've got TVs, we've got PlayStations, GameCubes, whatever. You know, now you've got 5-year-olds, you know, they ask me for a Higher Vibe DVD, and I'm like, you got a DVD player? And they're like, I just play it in my PlayStation. And I'm like, rah. It's like, when I was that age, I mean, I don't even think we had VCRs then. I know my mum didn't. We had a black and white telly, I think. And then we didn't have a telly, but we was always a bit behind in our house. And these days, kids are being given everything so that they don't need God, so that God's blocked out. Now, we got to get our priorities right. It could mean having some kind of distancing from parents, or it could be from relationships. You know, I ended up cutting complete ties with my girlfriend when I was 17, 18, because I wanted to follow Jesus. And it broke my heart to do it, but I was like, I've got to do it because I'm not going to follow Jesus and go out with this girl at the same time. Now, it might seem hard and harsh, these guys leaving their dad, but really, who left who first? God was in the Garden of Eden, and man left God. And then God tried to get man back through prophets, and man killed the prophets. And then God said, you know what, I'm going to send my son to die for them so that it's easy for man to come back to me. And still man doesn't come back to God. So it's not out of order to say, you know what, I'm going to cut ties with that person because they're stopping me go close to God. Because you owe it to God more than anything. And speaking of parents, we do have to honour our parents. But we don't have to do things that go against God's law. So when parents say you can't go to church, you can't do this, you can't do that, that's not something that you have to honour. You have to choose to follow Jesus. There's people in countries where they would get put in prison for going to church, but they still go to church. So you've got to make choosing God your priority over everything. Now, people are going to get in the way of you following Jesus. People are going to want to do drugs with you. People are going to want to make money with you, have sex with you. People are going to want to smoke weed with you. People are going to want to talk negatively with you. Always gossiping, always putting people down. You know, you go around someone's house and you leave and you're like, ugh. And there's been times when me and Shay are like, why do we talk to these people? You know? And you know, you get those people who say, come round again. And you're like, ah. Oh. And you know, in Roehampton, the thing is, bring someone around your house, sit them down, and then put the telly on. It's like, why would you go around someone's house to watch the telly? You're going to spend 9 years of your life watching telly anyway. So why do that when you're around your friend's house? But they're going to get in the way of your spiritual walk with Jesus, and the devil's going to put people in the way. So just be aware of that. Stay away from them. There's no point in being in Jesus' crew and doing bad things. Yeah? There's no point. It defeats the object. Jesus' crew is only about doing good things. Check it out. Jesus' crew makes good things happen. Verses 23 to 24. Jesus was going throughout all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every kind of disease and every kind of sickness among the people. The news about him spread throughout all Syria, and they brought to him all who were ill, those suffering with various diseases and pains, demoniacs, epileptics, paralytics, and he healed them. Everything Jesus did was good. Now we see here that he healed all kinds of sicknesses and diseases. So I think that means he can heal a bad back, but he can also heal depression. And he can heal emotional hurt. I don't see why there would be a difference there. In my own life, I've experienced a lot of healing emotionally. So the cost of being in Jesus' crew is very high, but the rewards are also very high. Now it might be that you're thinking, you know what? I've been in Jesus' crew for a while, and I'm not experiencing all this healing. I've got hurts and I'm not experiencing these healing. Now, what I'd say is that some healings happen straight away. Other healings take a process of time. But the way Jesus designed it is that you're always going after him. And you're always hanging around with the other people in Jesus' crew. And that's the way a lot of healing takes place. So imagine these disciples, right? They've been hanging around with Jesus for like 3 years in the end. Now, they're Galileans, so they've got hang-ups. They've got this funny accent. They're seen as half-caste. All the Jews from down south slag them off, right? So they've got some hang-ups, right? Now, they hang around with Jesus for 3 years. I'm sure they got a lot of emotional healing in that time. One of them was called Simon the Zealot. Now, the Zealots were a political group, but really, these days, we call them terrorists. They used to do assassinations. Right? They used to assassinate Romans. The Zealots were trying to get the Romans out of Israel. Okay, so you got this guy, Simon the Zealot. Imagine Bin Laden, right? Bin Laden has definitely got a few hang-ups. He's got some serious issues, right? Now imagine a guy like that hanging around with Jesus for 3 years. His life is going to be changed. Okay, so When we roll with Jesus, our lives will be changed. When we're rolling with other people in Jesus' crew, our lives will be changed. If our lives aren't being changed, and I've experienced this myself, I'd have to say I think it's down to two things. It's either when I myself aren't truly going after Jesus every day, spending 30 minutes just spending quality time with Jesus. When I'm not doing that, the other thing is the crew I'm rolling with. I've been in churches where, you know, I'm not getting regenerated hanging around with the people in the church. I'm actually getting depressed. So if you're in that situation, get out from it. Make sure you're in Jesus' crew. Make sure you're not hanging around with people that are putting you down. Don't hang around with people where whenever you hang around with them, you end up doing something wrong. You have negative fruit. Make sure you're really rolling with Jesus' crew. Now, these people that Jesus heals in these last few verses, imagine if they'd never come to Jesus. There would have been people there who were demon possessed. There's people there who were epileptics, paralyzed people, all kinds of diseases, and these people would have stayed the same if they didn't go after Jesus. And the devil's going to try and stop all of us going after Jesus. So we've got to make sure we're going to ignore him. Make Jesus number one priority. Turn off the iPod, turn off the TV, roll with Jesus' crew and save souls. That's what it's all about.